The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Welcome to the show. Hi to everyone watching live on our YouTube stream Monday through Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, including everyone coming over from the We Survive Bush, You Will Survive Obama Facebook page, as well as Lewis noted, the very long Facebook page, I Love It When I Wake Up in the Morning and Barack Obama is President Facebook page. Check out both of those. Make sure to like them for a bunch of great progressive news, stories, all sorts of great stuff, Lewis.
You got it.
Uh-oh. Lewis might be in a mood today. Starting to get a weird feeling.
I'm just
about
trying
today's...
to bring up the stream so I can look at the comments and stuff.
Right. Lewis likes to chat with people during the breaks.
Not really.
Hey, if you're getting worried about Mitt Romney falling behind in every key state poll, don't. It's still really early in this campaign. At least that's what Mitt Romney is saying. He's dismissing all of the polls and saying, you know, it's just too early. It's really, really early. Here's what he had to say on ABC News.
We asked the governor about those numbers. I'm curious what you would say to some of your supporters tonight, your donors, who might be concerned that this could be slipping away.
Well, I'm very pleased.
Hold on a second. Let's figure out why Natan doesn't have the video. I think I know. I think this computer may have been restarted at an inappropriate time.
Okay, I have it now.
And now Natan has it. Let's take it from the top, Lewis, please, if we may. This is Mitt Romney on, don't worry, it's really early in this campaign. Who knew?
Points here in Ohio, down by 9 points in Florida. And just before we came on the air tonight, we asked the governor about those numbers. I'm curious what you would say to some of your supporters tonight, your donors, who might be concerned that this could be slipping away.
Well, I'm very pleased with some polls, less so with other polls, but frankly, at this early stage, polls go up, polls go down.
There are some who believe that these polls are just now a reflection of that videotape last week. You were talking to donors, talking about the 47%.
And so my job is not to worry about those people. I'll never convince them.
You said, my job is not to worry about those people. I'll never convince them they should take personal responsibility. And I'm curious who exactly you were talking about there.
Well, I think as you look at the national polls, you see that I'm tied in the national polls.
Great answer. Who were you talking about when you mentioned the 47%? If you look at the polls, you'll see the national polls are tied. Great answer, Mitt.
Very good.
Really, really great answer. It's funny because he didn't want to talk about the polls, so he dismissed it and said they're still early. As soon as he gets asked about the 47%, all of a sudden, he's very into talking about those polls.
The polls don't seem so bad.
I hate to tell you, Mitt, it's really not early. This is a key point where we're starting to see a divergence in the polls. Both campaigns have happened, and I know we still have the debates, but every point of spread between Romney and Obama now is one full point that needs to be made up by the debates, putting an incredible weight on Mitt Romney's shoulders, don't you think?
Yeah. I'm usually the first one to dismiss a poll, but when all the polls indicate the same thing, then I can feel pretty confident about them.
Mitt staffers have been saying the debates will be what really let people get to know the real Mitt Romney. Isn't that what we heard at the RNC, that this is when you're going to get to know the real Mitt Romney? Where we're getting to know the real Mitt Romney is the gaffe compilation video that we put up on YouTube. It's the 47% video. It's all the things he's saying that he doesn't think are being recorded. That's the real Mitt Romney. We know the real Mitt Romney at this point. The debates, if anything, are going to give us a sense of how Mitt Romney is being told to act, not of the real Mitt Romney.
Right. The 47% video is, I think, the only real piece of evidence as to the real Mitt Romney, and we're very lucky to have it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, here's something else that's really funny. Mitt Romney, one of the main reasons that a lot of kind of low information, vote against your own best interest type voters are voting for him is because of the promise of lower taxes and the misconception that President Obama has raised their taxes, particularly lower and middle income people. Well, now we have video of Mitt Romney saying, hey, don't expect me to lower your taxes very much. So wait a second, Mitt. One of the only reasons that the entire Tea Party crowd would even consider voting for you, you're saying is actually not a good reason to vote for you. Fascinating. Look at this video, Lewis.
Look, small businesses typically pay tax at the individual tax rate. And so our individual income taxes are ones I want to reform, make them simpler. I want to bring the rates down. By the way, don't be expecting a huge cut in taxes, because I'm also going to lower deductions and exemptions. But by bringing rates down, we'll be able to let small businesses keep more of their money so they can hire more people. My priority is jobs, and I'll make it happen.
You know, it's kind of getting sad because I don't even think he really believes these tired old talking points.
Probably not, but they're the talking points that that he needs to state to make it sound like he's the guy to fix the economy.
Are they, though? Because his big thing has been middle-class tax cuts, even though that's what Obama did, and claiming Obama raised taxes.
I mean, the problem is when you get caught up in saying that middle income is $250,000, you know, it's just become a mess because of all his gaffes. But I mean, originally these were his talking points.
Natan, some people are saying that this new message about I'm not really going to lower taxes very much at all, maybe that's to try to woo independent voters in some of these key states. I think this video is from Ohio. And the thing is, isn't it a sign of desperation if he doesn't even know who are the key people? First, it's give him red meat to appeal to the base. Now it's let me talk a little bit more moderately to appeal to independent voters. This strikes me as total desperation, Natan.
Yeah, I mean, I really hate to act like the undecided electorate is more intelligent than I think I should give them credit for. However, you know, this talk about taxes, I don't think anyone's going to vote for Romney based on taxes. I think this whole issue over the last 3 decades has totally become almost obsolete. No one's going to vote for Romney because he's going to slightly lower your taxes.
Okay. He's not going to vote.
Or even significantly.
Let's back up. Let's back up here. There's people who Romney isn't talking to in this clip that he was talking to previously with his low tax language who would vote for him because they think he's going to lower their taxes to some significant extent. The Tea Party crowd, so on and so forth. By doing the I'm not going to lower taxes very much, only a little, the idea is that you're appealing to independents who don't want higher taxes but are worried about the effect of tax cuts on the debt. So it's kind of like hedging, you know, and I just don't think it's going to work. I think it's silly.
I think it's foolish to think that you can tailor what you say based on the state that you're in, because the vast majority of what people hear from your mouth is going to be from other states, from other TV shows, from
interviews, debates. And
So I mean, you're not helping yourself by doing this.
I just have a question about this whole thing. If a lot of these polls, like Ohio and Florida, are showing Obama above 50%, it doesn't matter. If those polls are accurate, it doesn't matter what the undecided voters in those states will finally decide, because Obama's already at the 50% mark. So I'm a little confused as to what he's even doing in Ohio.
The idea is not so much undecided, but independent, maybe, to woo people back. I don't know.
So you're saying people who in the polls are saying that they're going to vote for Obama are going to suddenly change their minds. Is that what you're saying?
He really has no choice.
I mean, guys, here's the thing. Republicans need Ohio. He can't give up on Ohio because he's 8 points down in
Ohio's
one poll.
all done.
What's that?
Ohio's all done.
You think it is?
I think Ohio's all done. I mean, if Obama's winning by an average of 6 to 7 points in the polls, Obama's going to have to completely self-destruct in the debates for this to turn around.
You can't expect him just to abandon the state completely.
No, he can't. Let's talk about what President Obama is doing. He was on The View yesterday. He, of course, as we know, Elizabeth Hasselbeck, the lone conservative on The View. And this is an interesting video because President Obama is being accused of brushing off Elizabeth Hasselbeck's question. I don't really know that he brushed it off. I think it was just kind of a silly bait question that President Obama gave kind of a standard answer for, because what's the point in really trying to engage in this with Elizabeth Hasselbeck? That's my view. I'll play it. You decide for yourself.
These tough questions get tougher to ask you because I wholeheartedly do really like you both. But I have some concerns. So, no, there's a little bit of disclaimer. I need to let everybody know. I do honestly and earnestly feel that way. Some concerns that I think many Americans may have right now, especially lie with the recent findings by the Bureau of Labor Statistics and U.S. Census, so including the median household income that flatlined and fell across the board this year. Income gap, which we talk about all the time, between the poor and the richest, actually grew to the widest it's been in 40 years, and 23 million Americans are out of work or have just stopped looking. Some would ask, is it unfair to assume that Mitt Romney may fail the middle class when, statistically speaking, they'd argue that your administration is failing the middle class?
So before we get to the answer from Obama, just a quick note. As you'll notice if you're watching this, President Obama kind of holding his wife's hand during this entire interview. Would you bet money that as this question is coming, he's giving little squeezes to kind of imply What the hell is Elizabeth Hasselbeck doing asking this question? I mean, if you had to guess, do you think there's that kind of shared camaraderie, quiet signal being sent between these two, the married couple?
I don't think they need to send that signal. I think they're probably both thinking the exact same thing.
Without Obama giving any squeezes to her hand. Okay, let's hear the Obama answer now.
You respond to that?
Well, look, we've gone through the toughest economy, the worst financial crisis, and the worst recession since the Great Depression. And that's not a surprise to anybody. We've been living it for the last 4 years. And everything that we've done has been designed to deal with not only the immediate crisis, but make sure that the middle class, which had been struggling for a decade before that, is feeling more secure.
So do you guys think that that was a brush off? What do you think, Louis?
Not a brush off. No.
Not at all. Natan, what do you think?
Well, first of all, I'm a little confused as to what happened right after the end of the clip. The clip seems to end at a moment where it seems like Obama might continue saying something. But
that's where the clip ends. I didn't cut it there.
Right. Well, let's assume that he stopped speaking at that point. I don't think it was a brush off. The question was, why haven't these economic indicators improved during your presidency? And the answer is the Depression was way too great to come out of in such a short period of time.
Yeah, and when you're dealing with Elizabeth Hasselbeck, it's like, how far do you really want to go and engage that? I don't know. At some point, you got to cut your losses and just kind of get an answer on the record. I just think that it's also forced when he goes on The View. I just don't even know that it's. I mean, there are interesting exchanges, no question about it, but it is all very forced. And is Elizabeth Hasselbeck really kind of playing this part? Is she really coming up with these questions on her own? I have no idea.
Hard to say. I don't watch the show. I didn't watch that show. I try to avoid it, to be honest.
There you go.
I don't know.
4 states are responsible for 25% of America's uninsured people. Is yours one of them? Well, let me give you some hints. This is from Upworthy.com. All of these states are fighting Obamacare. All of these states have governors that happen to belong to one particular party. That's the Republican Party. Here are the 4 states: Florida, Texas, South Carolina, and Louisiana. 4 Republican governors. Altogether, a quarter of the entire country's uninsured Americans are in those 4 states. They are rejecting Obamacare. They are saying their uninsured people don't need more help. It seems like they do. These are the states that also have significantly high rates of childhood obesity and higher than average rates of infant mortality compared to the country as a whole. The Republican governors rejecting Obamacare. Why aren't they getting voted out? Why is there not a call for a recall election, given that these Republican governors are doing what is directly against the best interests of their constituents? And why aren't we hearing more about this?
I don't have it on my computer, but I'd like to play the clip of Miss South Carolina, and I think that would explain why they're not being voted out.
Is that right?
Yes.
You think it's a cultural thing?
Yes.
What do you think, Natan, about this?
I don't know about the just general information about these 4 states. I mean, I think that it's incredibly ironic not only that the states that are most going to benefit from Obamacare are the red states that oppose it, but also that the reason why Obamacare was passed is because of the people in the states that will least benefit from it. That's why the law was passed. In other words, it's blue states essentially subsidizing and helping out the problems of red states.
And
it's
Republican
just the ultimate
governor.
irony about the state of the country.
It's a serious irony.
It's even more shocking when you consider, yes, of course, Florida and Texas both have huge populations, but South Carolina and Louisiana, not even close.
Not huge
to
populations, but still making part of that 25%. We'd have to see which state makes up what part of that 25%.
Yeah.
We could dig in deeper. Very disturbing stuff, and this is what we're dealing with this election. On today's bonus show, great bonus show today, we'll talk about a way to test the police response time in your town irresponsibly, as well as self-driving cars now legal in California. I'm excited about this. And glass data storage. What's that all about? Let's take a break. More after this. DavidPakman.com/membership.
The David Pakman Show at DavidPakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
Let's say hi to a new David Pakman Show member today, made possible in part by liberalbias.com, the only website allowed at producer Lewis's Krakatoa metal band concerts. What's the band update, Lewis? Do you want to fill us in?
Yeah, not much going on right now.
Are you guys in a rebuilding phase?
Sort of, yeah. Our next show is on the 6th at a festival locally at a gun club.
Are you kidding me?
No.
You're playing at a festival at a gun club.
Well, it's a big open space. I mean, well, where else are you going to play?
Oh, I see. It's not affiliated with like a gun event.
No.
Oh, I see.
It's just a big open outdoor space.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
And where is that? Do you want to give the details?
Yeah, it's at the something gun club in Turner's Falls.
Turner's Falls, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Compelling.
The Rod and something gun club. I have to get the information somewhere.
The Rod and Nut Club or something like that?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, anyway.
As we get closer to it, I'll give a full briefing.
Very good. And you'll be playing guitar still?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Very good. Robert Radliff. Robert Radliff is today's David Pakman Show member of the day. Great to have Robert aboard.
Thank you, Robert.
Find out more about membership at davidpakman.com/membership. Here's an incredible story from CNN. A soldier was trying to scare a fellow soldier out of the hiccups, okay? And he shot him in the face, killed him. That's the whole story. Let's take a break. No, I'm kidding. We'll go into it more, Lewis, of course.
Okay.
Both soldiers, joined by a third man, were drinking alcohol, watching football at the time of the Sunday night incident. Sounds like the Patriots game is what they were watching. And the victim had the hiccups. The suspect pulled out a gun to scare him in order to stop the hiccups, and he accidentally shot him in the face. Killed him.
Okay. So, what's our angle here?
Well, the angle is, number one, this reminds me of, I don't remember if it was a Simpsons or Family Guy episode where one of the characters gets a gun and then starts using it for everything, including shooting out light bulbs instead of just turning them off with the switch. I mean, are we really using guns for scaring people out of the hiccups now? Why not just take some big gulps of water? Or, you know, from Calvin and Hobbes, I'm remembering eat a spoonful of sugar or whatever before you put a gun to someone's head.
Yeah. I mean, the first rule of gun safety is you just never point your gun at any person, loaded or unloaded.
And another one should be guns or alcohol, not both at the same time.
That is also a good one. Yeah. Yeah. And why was his hand on the trigger, too? I mean...
A lot of weird questions.
Very strange.
But you know what? Everybody would be way safer if we had more guns. If the Hiccups had their own gun, a very small gun, this never would have happened. They would have been able to defend themselves.
Right. For sure.
They wouldn't have been scared away by a gunshot, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
This is really troubling. And this just seems to be, again, we had that follow-up yesterday with that angry Florida police officer who was angry with me about my comments about German police gun usage versus American police gun usage. This is part of the culture. Scaring someone with a gun to get rid of their hiccups? Come on.
Yeah. It is. It's a cultural problem.
Talk about that story at the Gun and Nut Club or whatever it is at the Krakatoa metal band concert.
We're not going to be talking at all.
Oh,
we're going to be rocking out.
Does your singer kind of like rap to the audience like Bruce Springsteen, where he tells different stories and maybe does economic theory or anything like that?
No, not so much.
No.
No.
All right.
He is an economist, though.
Yeah, well, that's why I asked.
Yeah,
because on Facebook, he has a number of different, very involved, sometimes 3, 4, 5 in the morning, he'll post a very long rant related to the political economy and socioeconomic thought and philosophy.
No, we don't bring that stuff on stage.
He's a real Renaissance man, though.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Very good. Yep. Okay. Here's a really weird story. Philip Parker is the world's fastest book author. He's only been writing for about 5 years, and he's written over 100,000 books, Lewis. What do you think?
I don't see how that's possible.
Well, there's more to this. Let me give you some of the titles of the books he's written. Here's one. The 2007 to 2012 Outlook for Bathroom Toilet Brushes and Holders in the United States. It's 677 pages long. It sells for about $500 US. What do you think?
I'm confused.
Is that a book you would buy?
No.
Okay. Here is another book that he wrote. He wrote, you know what, maybe I misplaced that. That's the type of book that he wrote. So here's what's going on. He's developed an algorithm, basically a writing system. It's a book writing machine, which is fed a recipe for writing a particular genre of book, and it's fed information about the topics and certain parameters are set. And then using internet searches and database queries, it writes the book. and then the book is published. Now here's the fascinating thing. The books are actually written on demand. So none are actually written until someone requests it. Someone says, I need a book on the change in the length of men's socks during the 80s and 90s in the Middle East. And then the algorithm would go in and it would actually generate that book, charge you for it, print it, and send it to you.
So he didn't actually write any books?
He actually wrote no books, yeah. So actually, let's discuss that. Does this mean, and in other words, who wrote the book? He set up the program that writes the books. Did he not, by proxy, write all of these books? His name is the author of the book.
But he didn't actually write any of the books. A computer program wrote the books.
Natan, what's your thought on this?
I think it's like saying the people who founded Google are responsible for all of the content in the searches. I don't know. It just makes no sense to me. He created a piece of software that does the writing. He's not doing the writing himself.
I actually thought that maybe Stephen King had rented out one of these machines for a weekend, but it turns out he hadn't.
Yeah, there was like a Family Guy joke where Stephen King is in a room and the guy's like, well, what have you got? And Stephen King is like, oh, it's about like a lamp, like a spooky lamp that kills people. And the guy in the chair just says, you're not even trying anymore, are you? And he says, okay, how much do you want for it? I have to kind of agree. Some of Stephen King's work has been a little shoddy.
So when we look at the people who have written the highest number of books, should this guy's name not even be on the list? Should there be an asterisk next to his name? What should be the case? Is this like equivalent to using steroids and getting a home run record?
I mean, I could see potentially him being like a producer of the book, or maybe even an editor or something like that.
Interesting.
But you can't call yourself the author of this book when you had no hand in any of the text in the book.
I'm trying to think of a comparable analogy that we could do to kind of expand this. Well, let's look at movies, right? If I write a screenplay by hand, I've clearly written the screenplay, and then a movie is produced, so I show up as the writer, so to speak.
Okay.
Let's say that I develop a program where I know kind of what algorithms work in movies, right? What kind of ideas together. So I put, here's what we need. We need these types of characters. We need, here's a list of different, almost like if it were done as a Mad Libs type of thing. And I press the button, and out comes a finished script, and a movie is made for that script. Now, I really only wrote the algorithm that wrote the script. Am I not really the writer of that movie? Did I not write that screenplay?
I would say no, you didn't.
Natan, what do you think?
I would say the credits should say screenplay by the piece of software, software by the name of the person who wrote the software.
Interesting.
That works.
Interesting. Let me know your thoughts on this one. DavidPakman.com, contact us. We'll see what people think.
All right.
Okay, what else do I need to mention? I need to mention it's starting to get cold if you live in a place that has seasons. And it's time to get a David Pakman Show hoodie. They're made from 100% recycled materials. You go to davidpakman.com/gear, pick the color, pick the size, or if you're somewhere that's warm year-round, get a t-shirt, davidpakman.com/gear. Let's take a break. We'll be back after this. We'll talk about the UN General Assembly and plenty more. Stay tuned.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
It's Thursday and time for Worldview with Dennis Campbell. Dennis is editor-in-chief of UK Progressive Magazine. The new book, Magic Underwear in the Situation Room, deals with Mitt Romney's Mormon faith. How's the book doing, Dennis?
It's doing surprisingly very well. I've been looking at the sales figures, and they've been climbing each week, which is always good. It does seem, though, to touch a bit of a nerve when you start talking about someone's religion, and I do try to stay away as much as I can from the pure religious aspects. The question I wanted to have answered is do we want to be in a position where a person who has been in a senior leadership position of any church would end up in the highest sect office in the land in the United States as the President of the United States. If you remember back to 1960, there was a furore over John F. Kennedy and the fact that he was Catholic, and would he be taking his orders from the Pope in Rome? And I think these are fairly significant questions that I try to pose and have answered in the course of it as well. And of course, the number of followers on Twitter has also gone up by over 1,000 in the last week and a half. So I think there's something going on there as well.
I'll say, yeah. There's also something going on in New York City, which is where the United Nations General Assembly is taking place. We heard from particularly right-wing media in the lead-up to this criticism because President Obama wasn't going to be meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu and with other leaders doing any one-on-ones. At the same time, then the kind of counter to that is, well, they have phones and they can kind of talk anytime, so what's really the sense? What's the big focus on this meeting? Before we get to that, we had a couple of interesting appearances. We had British Prime Minister David Cameron visiting David Letterman and getting asked some very basic questions about British history, which was an interesting dynamic if you haven't seen it. And then you were also talking to me about the Daily Show with Jon Stewart. So everybody making the rounds.
They are indeed. King Abdullah was on the Daily Show, and he was the King of Jordan was talking with John, and John asked him point blank. He said, you know, how important is it that you didn't get a one-on-one meeting this time through with the president? He said, not important at all. And I think that pretty much sums up the feeling. The one-to-one meetings were extremely important in the early days, the rock star days, when, you know, he was just recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize. He'd won the election by 9 million votes. He was out there making some very strong foreign policy moves in the G8 and the G20, being received very, very well on the world stage. But even when Sarkozy was running for re-election in France, he blew off meetings. So it's kind of a political story of the day meme that's being pushed, and frankly, not very well by the GOP versus anything that's going to have any political significance. The broader issues are what are important, and they've been ignored by both sides in this election.
Right. So here in the U.S., we're seeing a desperate effort from the right to make the meetings an issue. But what you're saying is, in Europe, it doesn't seem like the average news consumer nor the dignitaries themselves seem to really be putting that much focus on these one-on-one meetings.
No, not that much. It's, you know, you always have the ability, because you have established relationships now over 3.5 years, to pick up the telephone, as you said at the top of the segment. And if there's an issue, you have a discussion. There's no need to go through the formality of a pseudo state visit in which you have formal meetings and translators and, you know, the whole photography exercise for the press. I think so the broader issues are the ones that, you know, such as climate change and you know, the status of where the world is in terms of drones and spying and internet security and all these things. These are the bigger issues of the day. I had the really good fortune earlier this week, David, to be in a program over at Atlantic College, which is part of the United World Colleges group. There are about 13 colleges around the world. And I was on the dais with Terry Waite. And I listened to Terry Waite, who was held hostage for 5 years in Lebanon, discuss all of the issues and the way they're being handled today and how they were even handled back in the 1980s. And quite frankly, we're all very frustrated with the amount of trivia that passes as news today, and nobody's really addressing the serious issues in the world that are going on out there.
Yeah, and speaking of which, let's talk a little bit about Romney-Ryan foreign policy, because we've seen we're going to have I believe we're having one of the 3 debates here is going to be a foreign policy-centered debate. And hopefully there we will have to see something specific from Mitt Romney about the drones, about nukes, so on and so forth. What's the feeling outside of the U.S., particularly in Europe, about the lack of knowledge about what a Romney presidency may mean for foreign policy that affects those countries?
Well, I talked to a number of analysts here over the last couple of days, because you and I, of course, discussed the topic of the week before we go into this, and I wanted to get their impressions. And quite frankly, the consensus over here is that, at least at the presidential level, the race is over. They really honestly believe that you know, Barack Obama would have to do something incredibly stupid to lose. They all think the turning point was the 47% video. And what that has done, the irreparable amount of harm that has done to his candidacy, is beyond description at this point. And quite frankly, when we listen to them talk about foreign policy, it's clear they have absolutely no clue. You go all the way back to his visit to Israel, talking about a level of security and support for that nation that does not exist today, never has existed, because the United States has taken its role as a peacekeeper in the region fairly seriously and has tried to really walk it right down the middle. And in fact, walking it down the middle is what has gotten them into so much trouble with the Arab Spring uprisings, because they've not seen all of the change that was coming and been in a position to change in the way that they reacted and moved quick enough. So, I mean, it's absolutely phenomenal. It's almost a Cold War 1980s, 1970s, 1960s mentality that Romney and Ryan represent.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost literally that, Dennis, with Mitt Romney now, I think at least 2 times, saying Russia is the #1 geopolitical foe, which is just an incredible comment to make. It almost seems like, quite literally, Romney-Ryan is operating as if we are in the Cold War.
Indeed they are, and I find the hypocrisy of Romney to be absolutely frightening. I mean, it came out just a few days ago that he's one of the lead investors in a company called Seacon, which does all of the oil exploration for the Chinese state government. Now, he's been investing over and over in them for a number of years, only to find out that now they are the ones that are behind the development of the huge natural gas field in Iran. So technically, Romney is doing business with Iran. And when you put that on the table and you look at all of the other issues out there, you've now got, I've just been through one of the most extraordinary experiences as a journalist over the last 5 years, in which I've been talking about the humanitarian suffering of a group of Iranian refugees stuck in the desert, basically being shot at by Iran and Iraq, the MEK. They were on the terror watch list at the State Department, and last Friday they were taken off of that list, and they've been off the list in the UK and the EU, and there's been a humanitarian crisis in the desert affecting 3,400 people. I wrote an article for truthout.org about 3 years ago, and literally got thrown under the bus by them because the Iranian propaganda ministry came in and started this incredible campaign of comments and counter comments, and all of a sudden I was out of a job over there after having written about election fraud and the Tea Party and all of the other things. So we've got to pay more serious attention to all of the things happening in that region. We can't just spout off and expect that they're going to suddenly love us. And as Rumsfeld said, there'll be flower petals on the streets greeting us as heroes.
Right, and as we talked about last week, been looking at that poll, that people in Europe particularly would be very displeased with the potential Mitt Romney presidency. We're going to keep an eye on the polls. We're going to keep that conversation going. I guess what we can gather from this is no one-on-one meetings, not very significant to anybody other than Republicans in the U.S. trying to make a big deal out of it.
Nope, but the nice thing is that I've got my absentee ballot here ready to post tomorrow. So for me, the election is over.
Oh, so you still vote in the U.S.?
I still do, yes. Yes, I've been voting absentee now for 14 years.
And what state do you vote in?
Well, I lived in Tennessee. That was my last legal residence, so that's where I vote.
Incredible. And wow, we learn something every day. I'm shocked.
There you go.
All right, Dennis Campbell, editor-in-chief of UK Progressive Magazine. Check out the book Magic Underwear in the Situation Room. Thanks as always, Dennis. We'll talk to you next week.
All the best.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Welcome back to the David Pakman Show. As we get ready to close the book, as the case may be, on the third quarter of 2012, please consider becoming a David Pakman Show member. We are on track for the best quarter of all time for new David Pakman Show members. But it's going to be close, and we really need these last few days of the month to go well. So please, if you've been thinking about becoming a David Pakman Show member, you've been watching the show for a long time or not for a long time, and you recognize the importance of an alternative to homogenous corporate media, go ahead and do it. This is the time. davidpakman.com/membership. We're talking about pennies a day directly towards supporting independent media in a big way.
Yes.
Thank you, Louis. This is really weird. In Japan, they have a beauty trend, as it's being called, which is called Bagel Head, which is where women get saline injected into their foreheads and it creates a big bulge.
It's not just women.
What's that?
No, it's not just women, I just said.
It's not just women.
No.
Look at the picture.
Right, no, it's particularly women. I think this guy on the right is the injector. I don't know that it's a very common thing that men do. I think that guy is the
Well, I
actual
think the
guy.
clip you're going to show has a guy doing it.
Yeah.
We're not showing a clip.
Men and women both do it.
All right, let's back up a little bit here.
Okay.
Mostly women and some men in Japan are getting these Bagel Head saline forehead injections. You inject saline the same way you might inject Botox into a other part of the, the way you might inject Botox. It creates a big bulge, and then with a finger, it's pushed in to create this kind of dimple, which makes it almost look like a bagel. It lasts a matter of hours because then the body absorbs the saline. Who knows if that's really even too good to be doing on a regular basis. And it's incredible to me that this is being considered some kind of a beauty or fashion trend, because a lot of people might be born with something similar that they consider a deformity that they want to get rid of. This is one of the oddest things I've seen.
It's insanely ugly, and incredibly stupid, and I find it mind-boggling. I don't understand how anyone can find this attractive.
Why would someone pay for it?
It looks disgusting.
So you find this to be a turnoff?
Oh yeah.
If in one of your escapades where you are romancing young women, they indicate that they do this or they show up with this, would that be called a deal breaker, so to speak?
That would be called get the F out, never talk to me again. You're a lunatic. You're ugly. See ya.
Can we imagine any reasoning for why? I mean, let me take it another step. Is this that different from, for example, in some African countries where you use the neck rings to extend the neck, which also to some people would appear to be a deformity of some kind, and we say, well, culturally it's what's being done. Is this that different?
No, I guess it's basically the same thing. I mean, I find both to be ugly. I mean, if other people find it attractive, that's their prerogative. That's fine.
What body modification are you into?
I mean, define modification. Is a piercing a modification?
I would say so.
Okay, well, if a girl has piercings, that's fine. I mean, I can't think of any body modifications I can think of that I find incredibly attractive.
Right. What about like the subdermal things, like where you
That's basically the same as a piercing.
Yeah, you like those.
Whatever. I'm completely neutral on it.
You just don't care. But this you would be against in a very active way.
This is insane.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. We've heard it from Louis. Would you like this? I don't know. It's not for me. I think that's the case.
No bagel heads?
Not into the bagel head.
Only onion bagels with cream cheese.
Yes, and smoked salmon, of course.
Of course.
Yeah. All right, but no capers. You know what? Honestly, there's this Curb Your Enthusiasm episode where they hire a chef who says he will not work with capers. He just doesn't like them. And I used to think it was ridiculous. I have a growing antipathy towards capers, I must say.
I think capers are one of the most disgusting things I've ever had in my life.
Wow.
Yeah. Cannot stand capers.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
A couple weeks ago, I called for people who worked in retail to send stories after telling a few of my stories from working at Circuit City when I was in high school. And I've gotten a few more which I think are funny, and I'll just read a few. This is really very funny stuff. Diego works at a Best Buy in Arizona. Guy walks in, brand new plasma TV back when they were really expensive, shattered by his 3-year-old. We tell him damage isn't covered in the service plan, but we could send it to have the panel replaced. And he completely loses his marbles. He knocks down a big TV that was on display onto the ground, starts jumping on it over and over again, yelling F word, F word, F word as loud as he could, and eventually just walked out, never having the TV fixed.
Huh. So did he get arrested later? I mean, he broke one of their TVs.
Doesn't say. I mean, it sounds like the guy was just able to leave.
All right.
What do you know?
Pretty crazy.
Andy, also working at Best Buy, seems like a lot of weird stuff happening at Best Buy, had a guy come in with an older Sony computer monitor. It had a service plan, wanted it replaced. I told him, no, we can fix it. His words were, it's not broken, I just want it replaced. Guy starts getting belligerent, so the managers ask him to leave. Right as he passes me, he just chucks the entire monitor at me and yells, it's broken now. and tries to run for the door. Loss prevention clotheslined him so hard he vomited a little. I have to say, it's hard to imagine Best Buy loss prevention clotheslining anyone, especially since generally at these stores you're told not to physically restrain people or hold them in the store.
Well, if there's a physical assault, I think you have carte blanche to tackle or clothesline anyone who's guilty of that.
Interesting. And then Jonathan writing to me saying, I'm an overnight retail pharmacist. As I'm sure you can imagine, I've had my share of interesting stories. Many, in fact, that a lot of this stuff doesn't even get to me anymore. A few weeks ago, I was ringing up a customer for his wife's birth control. I'm required by law to offer counsel on all medications, so I asked, do you have any questions about the medication? The man responds, yeah, could you ask Sandra Fluke to pay for it? Now, it's not at all my place to challenge customers' political viewpoints, so just trying to remain cheery, I note that someone already did pay for it because he has a $0 copay. As the customer's walking away, I noticed who the third-party payer was. It was none other than Medicaid. Just another sad example of misplaced right-wing rage. This is a combination retail story and political story, which is pretty funny. It's kind of like keep the government's hands out of my Medicare type of thing.
Yeah, very funny. Another clueless moron.
All right, and then lastly, this is from Willard Mittens on YouTube. I love this. My girlfriend worked at a beauty salon in LA, and once an older Jewish man walked in and asked if they did circumcision repair. She said no, obviously. He then pretended to look at tanning creams for 3 minutes before just walking out of the store.
Pretty bizarre.
That's a good one. I like that one. Keep these coming. We'll do this every couple weeks. People are responding very positively to these. Every time I read 3, I get 30 more in my email.
That last story, if that happened to me, I would assume I was on camera and that there was a prank being played on me. But
all right, this week's trivia question. The way it'll work is this. Go to davidpakman.com, contact us, send me the answer. That's the only way you can submit an answer, and it has to be done before 2 p.m. Eastern on Monday, which is when the next show airs. Which guest has had the most appearances on the David Pakman Show, excluding Dennis Campbell? He has a weekly segment on the show. Yeah. Of course, he's been on the show more than anybody else. But Dennis Campbell aside, who has had the most appearances on the David Pakman Show as a regular guest, as a standard, ordinary guest here for an interview? davidpakman.com, contact us, send me the answer. Free memberships to the first 5 people to get the answer right before Monday, 2 p.m. If less than 5 people get it right, then they'll all get a free membership. Let's go to a great voicemail from Ro Parker about our discussion of the tomahawk chop yesterday.
Hey guys, this is Ro from Boise, Idaho. I just finished watching today's show and the segment where you call the Brown supporters racists using violence, and Lewis and Natan uncomfortable, it seems to me, about calling that violent. But then when you showed the picture of the lynched chair, Lewis immediately recognizes that as violence. And to see violence in one but not the other, it's really a reflection of how violence against Native peoples have been minimized. And it reminds me a lot of how Ann Coulter says that civil rights are only for blacks because we owe them for slavery. But, you know, her absolutely not seeing the atrocities in your genocide of Native people.
I think that Ro Parker is making a really good point here, which is, and before you jump all over this, Lewis, that for some reason, the lynching reference is equally violent as the tomahawk chop reference to how Native Americans were essentially wiped out almost completely. Yet you and Natan were both more hesitant to say that that is racist.
Well, no, they weren't. Hold on, they weren't wiped out by their own tomahawks. Now, when I commented on this, what I'm talking about is the person's intentions. Now, when someone's doing this, I don't think it's symbolic of anything violent, because that's just what you do when you want to make a Native American symbol, or you do this or you do this, okay? That's just what you do. It's like what they do at the ball games too. But when you are lynching something from the tree in your lawn, there is very, very clear intent that you are sending a violent racist
we
message.
Can't get too far into this. I want to give Natan a shot to respond real quick. What I would say is, in the same way that the guy who lynched the chair probably isn't going to actually attempt to lynch Obama, the people doing the tomahawk chop probably are not going to actually try to go out there and scalp Native Americans. They both refer to equally violent, race-based things that have taken place. Natan.
Yeah, I didn't say that the chair lynching was an example of violence. I think in a way you could argue that, like Lewis is saying, the tomahawk, the whole Native American reference in those protests was less violent. I was only talking about the same thing Lewis was talking about, which was whether the people were being violent, and they weren't. They were just going around saying things. So
in the same way that the guy who only lynched a chair was not being violent.
No, because Lewis is right. That's a reference to a violent act, to a hanging. So I think there is something to be said about that. Having said that, I think the caller is right. There is a double standard applied here, and there's much less sensibility, or sensitivity, I should say, regarding Native American issues.
Real quick on the bug eating from Greg Stevens, who is, of course, the liberalbias.com owner of that website. I would have to eat 2,700 grams, or about 6 pounds of crickets each day as a bodybuilder to get the equivalent amount of protein that I need, or I could eat 1,700 grams of giant water beetles. That sounds pretty bad. And he says, does no one care about the welfare of the crickets? What about the crickets, Lewis?
Yeah, I'm sure PETA would care about the crickets.
All right. We'll see you on the next show. Or the bonus show.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.